And I can hit the, let's see, is it loading? Oh, it is live. Beautiful. I'm going to hit the publish button on the post, which means people can watch us live. And I will tweet out now.
I guess kill some of the light here.
Hey, watch us live talking about wrestling. Woohoo! And also tweet at us. Cool. Hopefully people will chime in. Sorry about that. I gotta put this on le mute. Hey everyone, welcome to episode 3 of our wrestling podcast. Our as yet unnamed. Let me move this stuff around so you can see more of my geek stuff there. Our as yet unnamed. Wow, there's like nothing up there. It's so boring. Podcast, but we'll talk about that today. Sorry for the visual. I gotta get a better camera in here. It's mostly not getting better lighting because I'm still on the really yucky yellow lighting that my house came with like 11 years ago. So not very good for cameras. I get some. I like. John and JJ both have some really nice lights. John, how's it going?
Oh, it's going great.
Your face is lit beautifully.
Oh, can you see yourselves in my glasses again this week?
If you talk more, I probably will.
Maybe a little bit more.
And JJ, how are you, my friend?
Doing great. How about yourself?
Wonderful. And you're also lit very well. We got your audio issues figured out.
Sidelight. Yeah.
Excellent. Everybody's lit. Not in a good way, maybe. I don't know. That's like slang term I got to start using, right? Lit. Well, welcome. Our 3rd episode. We skipped last week just because everyone was so busy, and well, I was really busy, and sorry about that. It was right before the Labor Day weekend here in the U.S., and so a lot of people were heading out, including myself. Didn't get a chance to really prep for the show, but we do have some fun things planned this time around. So one of the things I definitely want to talk about is the naming of the show and coming up with a name, and have a fun little thing we're going to try with that. And then I started watching Lucha Underground, which is a lot of fun, and I want to talk about that, and then maybe some of the general WWE things that have been happening. But maybe a bit of a shorter episode, which is okay. We're kind of trying this whole soft launch thing that could be pretty cool. So with that said, I want to start off with naming our podcast, and it's something that we've been trying. We've been throwing ideas back and forth in our Twitter and our comments areas and stuff, and trying to come up with something. And we've had a few ideas. The first idea that we really liked ended up already having a podcast out there, right? Yeah. That was Enhancement Talent, I think is what it was.
Yeah.
Right? Yep. And so that was unfortunately already used, so we had to come up with something else. I think the next one that we saw that you guys posted was Transitional Champions. Thought that was kind of cool. Maybe shorten it to Transitional Champs. Who knows? But I like that. That's kind of interesting. We also brought up, what was the other? I'm looking through the note here. We have SideQuest Slam. We kind of a play on Sidewalk Slam. So there are a few ideas right there.
Yeah, the trick to a good wrestling podcast name sometimes brings in a wrestling term or a bit of lingo and play on that hopefully. So it can be tough to come up with something that's not used.
Correct. Naming a podcast is a very difficult thing to do. But we're going to try it. And so because of that, the very first thing I want to do is we have those few ideas right there already, and I'm going to shotgun style throw out some of the names that some of our listeners and followers, which we do have some, have mentioned to us. And I'm gonna retweet this, let everybody know. Please help us name our show. Help us. See, this is happening live, everybody. This is how awesome and well arranged and agenda this podcast is. Anyway, so I'm gonna do a kind of shotgun style with all these names, and you guys tell me what you think of these names, and I'll mark some down, some of the ones that we like. So Zoso1701 gave us the suggestion for "It's Not Fake." So that's one right there.
Mhm.
Tom Johnson, good old that Tom Johnson, Wrestle Boys. Our good friend Rex Lee, Pena Florida at Hairdo, writes, "How about I love it, Maggle?" It's just
That's a good one.
Kristen at Increased Blue, he writes, you can call it ladder match, defend the belt, give him the chair. He says, "You can tell my wrestling knowledge is limited." I've heard glorious job. So Soul Republic at Soul Republic says glorious jobbers, teary-eyed jobbers, and he says I always rooted for the ones that warm up the crowd, which is kind of an interesting way to do it. So maybe something that can warm up the crowd. So there are a few names there, a few more that I've been kind of thinking up. Reversal, which could be kind of fun. Reversal, and then there was it was a play on tables, ladders, and chairs match, but I couldn't quite come up with like the words to put in. I had like talk, live, chat, but didn't quite. Yeah. Good old. We have another one. Matt Manver just tweeted at me. He says at Matt Manver 2 says it doesn't matter what your podcast name is. That's a good one.
Oh.
So there are a few there, and I was looking at some kind of classic wrestling terms, like jobbers and things like that, but stuff from like the 30s and like the 40s and 50s when wrestling was wrestling.
All the carnival speak.
Yeah, it was all carnival speak, exactly. But I think that's the kind of the big chunk that I have so far. Was there anything there that was kind of piquing your guys' interest out of all of the ones that we've listed so far? If nothing is popping up, that's fine. We can continue coming up with a name. But there were a couple in there that I thought were kind of fun, although I don't know if it would work super well. But they could be kind of interesting.
I did like It's Not Fake.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the not fake cast. Yeah.
It's not fake. It's a podcast.
It's not fake. Ooh, I like that. It's not fake. It's a I'm writing that down. That's good.
It's not fake. It's a wrestling podcast. Something like that.
Sports entertainment.
Oh, good. It's not fake. It's a wrestling podcast. That's good. Let's see here. I still like. There's something cool about transitional champs. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, slam witches. That was a good one.
Okay. Yeah.
I thought about that one as I was driving through a Subway sandwich shop drive-through. I'm like, God, I gotta think of a name. This was yesterday. I'm like, I gotta think of a name for the podcast because we were originally planning on doing the podcast yesterday. I'm like, God, what could I do? I'm like, Slammies. No, that's taken. It sounds like salami, and I'm in a Subway parking lot here. Slamwiches.
Sandwiches.
So the Denny's has the Grand Slamwich, so you can get some cross promotion if we.
Ooh, I like that. That's good. Grand Slamwich. Maybe we can get sponsored by Denny's. That would be fantastic. Denny's, if you're listening, we are looking for sponsors for our wrestling podcast. We could call it. We could like totally take sponsorship for the podcast. So this week it'll be like the wrestling podcast sponsored by Denny's. You know, it could be like the Grand Slamwich.
Like every single pay-per-view is sponsored by something.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Totally. I agree. Yep.
Presents Wrestle Boys.
Ooh, there you go. Coles brings you transitional champs. So there's some good ideas there. I like where this is going. This live brainstorming session.
Mm-hmm.
The Grand Slam, which is good. What about a way to kind of talk about the plurality of us as wrestlers or wrestling fans, because you can call it the Grand Slam, which, but I kind of like the transitional champs or something about us, almost like we're a tag team in a weird way.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I mean, there's in several feds there's trios.
Yes.
The 3-man tag.
Ooh, yeah, like a 3-man tag. Is that the name of a podcast, by the way?
The 3-man tag.
Yeah. It might be.
It might be.
I do like that 3-man tag. That's really good. We could every podcast could be almost like named like a pay. Ooh, that's perfect. We could name each one like a pay-per-view event. So this is not episode 3. It's NitroCast or something. Welcome everybody to 3-man tag in
Great American Podcast.
Dude, that's fantastic. Great American Slamwich, Grand Slam. Oh man, these are so good. We could quite literally change it every week, which might be kind of fun in a weird way, in a stupid metagame way.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of.
The Intercontinental Podcasters?
Yeah, ooh, I like that. Intercontinental Podcasters. I'm writing that down. This is good.
Just a random number generator picks the name each week.
I think that's how the WWE picks their wrestling event names anyways. This is good. I like this. This is I think we have some good stuff to work with here.
Mm-hmm.
So the second part that we need to figure out is we need to. I kind of want to start giving ourselves wrestling names as we introduce ourselves. So I'm going to give you 5 seconds to come up with a quick wrestling name, and I'll introduce us, and we'll change it every week as we introduce ourselves. So, all right, I'm going to call this in. 3, 2, 1. Welcome, everybody, to SideQuesting's Wrestling Podcast. This week's episode, the Intercontinental Podcasters, starring Dolly Money Tree Dimovsky. John, what's your wrestling name?
My dad, when I was growing up, my dad knew that I was a wrestling fan, and he always said, "You should call yourself the Hard Rock from Flat Rock."
John, the Hard Rock from Flat Rock, Keto. JJ.
What's the Southern Dandy?
JJ, the Southern Dandy Holder. I like it. Beautiful. This is good. So every week, and if you guys don't come up with it, I'm going to come up with one for you, which you may not like. And I usually come up with names by like what I'm seeing in the video. So it's John Goatee and Glasses Keto. JJ, the Beard Holder. All right, good. I like where we're going. This is a good start to the podcast. We have a good vibe starting here, something that we can continue every
Establishing
week.
A gimmick. It's good.
Establishing a gimmick,
That's
exactly.
what you need in wrestling.
Energy, man.
Energy. That's right. We come in with the energy, brother. I will hold off on my really bad Hulk Hogan impersonations and my Macho impersonations.
Even Hulk Hogan does a pretty bad Hulk Hogan impersonation.
Even Hulk Hogan does a pretty bad. This is true. So that was fun. That was good. I think we have some ideas here for how to name our podcast. Maybe even change the name every week, in a slight fun way. But I wanted to bring up something that's kind of fun, and that's Lucha Underground. And so I had been hearing people talk about this all the time. You guys had mentioned a lot.
Yeah.
Eric Smith had talked about it. Good friend of the show, Eric Smith. Good friend of the show, Ron Funches. People have been mentioning Lucha Underground. And so I didn't know it was on until yesterday. I was doing some work around the house, and I had Twitter open. And I saw like 2 or 3 tweets, hashtag Lucha Underground, from people I follow. And I thought, I wonder where I could watch this. Do I need a subscription somewhere? And I think for season 1 and 2, you do need something, right? Where can you watch those? That's not on WWE Network, is it?
No,
it's
the Del Rey Network.
El Rey Network,
El
yeah.
Rey Network.
Yeah.
I don't get that one. I have to steal it. So.
That's the funny thing. We got another one. Mike Wayner at Mike Wayner says we can call ourselves Turnbuckle. So that's a good Turnbuckle could be kind of fun. We must have just got the El Rey Network locally here because I never saw it before. But I did a Google search online of where I could find the Lucha Underground, and it led me to El Rey Network, and you can watch some episodes online, and you can watch the live episodes on TV. Tracked it down. Yeah, started watching it.
I had Sling TV for a little while,
okay.
And it's on that. So
cool. I'll have to check that out because I don't have Sling. We have Mike Ray. as I'm speaking here, I have my IO or my Twitter notifications going, and Mike Weiner again says the top rope. So that's always a possibility.
Yeah.
Top rope is a good one. So I'm like, let me check it out and see what this is about, because I had heard actually little about the wrestling and more about something about plots and stories and something. I had no idea. I thought it was a cartoon when I first, or maybe it was like Nacho Libre that they made it into a series. I'm not sure. So I turned it on and started watching, and it was the main event last night, which was Rey Mysterio versus Pentagon Black. Awesome match. I've always loved lucha wrestling. Luchadors are, the athleticism is unbelievable, and when they first got into WCW and WWF and WWE, it was a completely different style of wrestling that made people love their acrobatic skills, and so I know me especially.
It's what kept people on WCW even after.
Yeah, definitely.
When the main event stuff was sort of really stale and bad, people were still watching it because that's where, in America, that's where you would turn to at that point.
Exactly. And so I saw, so Rey Mysterio and Pentagon Black, and I won't spoil it for you guys, and go ahead and watch it. But so I catch the episode, I catch the match, and the match ends, and there's like some drama during the match, which is, it's a little bit. It's way more dramatic than what you'd see in WWE, because there's like people getting up and walking out, and okay, we have Cheap Pop Podcast. That's another name
that has to be taken.
Maybe we'll take a look at that. That's at B_Parsons007. So
there's definitely a Cheap Heat podcast. So so Cheap Pop, I don't know, maybe.
Yeah. Cheer to the Face podcast. That could be another one.
Mm-hmm.
WWE, you can't do that anymore. So
yeah. The Tombstone. Remember when they banned the Tombstone? Lucha. So the match ends. Some drama happens during the match. More drama happens after the match, and then they cut to a scene of one wrestler in the locker room, and one of the announcers is talking to him, and it was this plot that had been developing. And Sean Norton says wrestling podcast. Yeah, Sean, we have a wrestling podcast. Watch us, dude.
Third one.
You people not look at my tweets?
Well,
like all 8 followers of mine not look at my tweets. But it was kind of interesting. So I rewound the whole episode, because you can rewatch it and watched it from the beginning. And there was there's kind of a recap about what had happened at the end of season 2 and how it leads into this plot with like brothers and Pentagon Black and Dario and all this kind of stuff. It was so interesting. It was like I mean, it's more soap opera than it is wrestling. But holy crap, the wrestling is really good.
Mm-hmm. And at this point in the game, they've kind of developed or kind of toned it down a little bit, just a hair. Because in those early first season episodes, they were really wrestling really fast, and nobody was selling any moves, and it was a total spot fest.
It was more choreography than it was.
Now, and they had that, but at the very least, they still had all that storyline elements that tied it all together. That made if anybody ever asks me about it, I always say, go ahead and start from the first episode, because it all ties together, and there's an overarching story that you don't see in wrestling on any other show, and to this degree. I mean, there might be cases where there's the accidental, actual, carryover of storylines over a long period, but not like Lucha Underground. Like it's a season, and it's a self-contained story, and the things that happen in it carry to the next one. And they remember what happened in the past. Like in WWE, there's a tendency to not remember what happened before, so you end up,
the chances of anything being even mentioned 6 months into the future in WWE programming is next to zero. So.
Right.
Yeah, it's pretty negligible. Yeah.
Unless it gets, like, we're talking years and years later, they'll start talking about things that happened, 14 years ago. This happened. Now it's, Yeah, they're not.
No,
Yeah, with Lucha Underground, it's things that happened in season 1 still affect scenes happening in season 3.
yeah, it's all continuity and plot, and like, they describe it as a TV show about wrestling, rather than being a wrestling show.
Yes, I can see that. Yeah, it's actually a great description of it. Yeah. It was. I loved it. I mean, I'm definitely not the only one. It seems like everybody I've spoken to about it and brought it up has been raving about it, and I'm glad I finally
It's probably
got
the
into
best
it.
wrestling show for someone that's not a wrestling fan.
Yeah, I can see that. Yep.
Because it doesn't really fall into a lot of the tropes that you get stuck in with WWE and stuff, where everything's sort of. You can watch a show today and you can watch a show 12 years ago, and you'll see pretty much the same thing, just new players.
Yeah.
But it's yeah, they don't really fall into the same tropes that you find in your typical wrestling on American television, which is a great thing for someone who maybe watched the WWF in 1992 and was like, eh.
You may watch a match or two from like the early '90s here and there, but this is the first time, and I can't believe I'm saying this. I need to watch the first 2 seasons of Lucha Under. I need to watch the first 2 seasons of a wrestling TV show to catch up on what's happening on the wrestling TV show today. Which you would do that with WWE. You'd say, all right, hey, what happened? Triple H lost, so now he's a bad guy. Okay, that's about all I needed, right? Now.
Yeah. Oh, and they'll tell you 2 more times throughout the week if anything of any importance happened.
Yeah. Well, WWE is designed that you can pick it up and jump in and
it's like a
pretty well
sport, right?
Yeah, everything's done in a 4-week cycle, and it's all done, and you move on to the next thing.
Yeah. But at least with Lucha Underground, where they have the season structure, you can just like catching up on Game of Thrones. I can watch season 1. I can watch this set of 22 or 24 episodes, whatever it is, with the big two-hour finale. Yeah. And it's a season. You can digest it. You can
binge watch a wrestling show, which to me that's
totally
awesome.
It's weird to think that you can watch a wrestling show with a definitive beginning and end, like several episodes. Like there is a finale. There's a legitimate finale at the end of a season. Like that doesn't happen.
No.
WrestleMania can sometimes be your finale, and that's barely a finale.
Yep.
Like it's too bad that it's not more readily available.
Yeah.
Right.
I have to steal it as well.
Yeah.
And I think it's on the Fight Network here now, but like 1 a.m. on a Thursday or something. But that being said, you're asking where can you find it? It is on iTunes in the U.S.
Oh, okay, cool.
And you can get it by the episode if you want to do it that way. But it's.
We don't advocate stealing. We advocate because this is so good. I would say just go out and buy the first 2 seasons or whatever. Hopefully, it'll show up on like Amazon or Netflix at some point.
Didn't they recently sign a deal with something? I could have sworn I remember reading like it's going to be on like Hulu or Amazon at some point.
I think it's Hulu. Is it Hulu?
Yeah, they're gonna get the previous seasons or something. Not the most recent season, but like previous seasons.
Yeah, it's a crime that it's not up on something.
Yep. Well, it's awesome. I may have a fun new show that I can watch, and I can actually watch this with my daughter and my wife just because it's a serial more than it is a one-off show. So,
but just to touch back on starting from the beginning, like the characters that you were watching now in season 3 are very well seasoned. Like Pentagon, he started out as one of these guys that just came out of nowhere, just a spot guy from Mexico who came in and with Aerostar and a couple other guys, all at the same time, and they all started just wrestling 4-man matches every week. But slowly but surely, they added little character tweaks to each one, and backstage vignettes, and a little bit of plot, and a little bit of advancement. And like Pentagon now, is like the top guy, and pretty well the top guy in the company, with the whole thing he had going on with Vampiro as his, I won't get into how Vampiro turned out to be, but it was certainly like every character has this arc and a development, and you can follow. And I found watching season 1, like even Mil Muertes. Mil Muertes is this big, like he's the Undertaker of Lucha Underground, for lack of a better term, right? And when he came in, I thought he was just big, stiff muscly dude who didn't really do much. He's my favorite guy. Like I think he's just tremendous. Like I mean, you know, for lack of a better term, he's died a couple times and come back to life on Lucha Underground and back meaner, bigger, and stronger than ever every time. And I'm just, yes, give me some more. And it's just a tremendous show.
It is hilarious that you can actually say that somebody, like, he died and we're not being sarcastic.
No, or somebody turned into a dragon, or somebody flew into outer space this time. You know, like all this happens on this show.
Brilliant. It's brilliant.
But you can suspend your disbelief so much that it's just storytelling completely.
I'm so gonna get these earlier seasons. I'm excited for that. I'll pay for it if I have to. It seems just the stuff you guys are telling me sounds just stupid, crazy bonkers, which is right up my alley. And this is the kind of thing that like I could watch at the office. It seems like just like prop up my iPad or something on the side next to my work desk and let just Lucha Underground play while I'm doing an Excel spreadsheet. You know, that can keep me entertained.
That's basically what my WWE network is for me nowadays.
Yeah, there you go.
Put on
Very
some
cool.
old thing and just let it play in the background, and my eyes will pop up from time to time, like, oh yeah, I remember that.
And we've talked about this, excuse me, in the past couple episodes, but how there's so much to watch right now, wrestling wise, from live shows. I mean, WWE Network has like 8+ hours of live show. WWE has like 8+ hours of live shows every week, just wrestling. And then there's also like the talk and the podcast and other stuff that happens afterwards. And you have other shows. You have NXT. You have the cartoons for the kids. There's a lot of stuff that you can get into if you're a fan of wrestling in some way or another. And I kind of wish that there was more there were more options for wrestling video games. Maybe we'll talk about wrestling games in the next couple episodes here, because I think the next WWE 2K17 is coming out, and I have 2K16. I had downloaded it through, I think it's like Games with Gold on Xbox One or something.
Yeah, that was the free one last month.
So I haven't started playing that yet. My last experience with wrestling games was like a decade ago. So anyways, that's more things we can talk to. But I think there's some very cool opportunities if you are a fan of wrestling, just on TV in general, to check out some pretty cool things. So it's good.
It's funny with Impact. Like it may be a bad show, but I would like to watch it from time to time. But its network can't get tied down for more than a couple months at a time, it seems like. So,
yeah.
Like it's on what's ostensibly the TV Guide network now, and I don't think I have that anymore.
It's also in the bad place of being on a Thursday. You know, Thursday's at the end of the cycle now. Like the Sunday pay-per-view, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I'm just like, give me a break from wrestling for a couple of days most times.
You know, and it's back to Lucha Underground, because that was the biggest thing that they were doing, was that Matt Hardy thing, and that's not too far removed from what Lucha Underground was doing. Like,
Well, they're catching on.
That's something we could go an entire hour just talking about all of that, and it's still going on.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
This is something that I can't wait to get into. Again, I'm kind of the newbie here, but I'm the wide-eyed one right now with
the
with
Hidden Gems collection they just added to the WWE Network is
that is cool. So let's talk a little about that. Can you explain what this is? Because you guys mentioned it to me, and then I hopped right online to take a look.
Yeah, so the WWE Network does collections where they just sort of hobble together things for certain, whatever reason. This is the Daniel Bryan collection. This is the Mr. Fuji just recently died, so they put out a nice collection of sort of his top moments through stuff that they have. And the most recent one that they put out was the Hidden Gems collection, which is just a bunch of stuff that probably hasn't been seen by people in some cases, decades. Like, out the gate is a Lou Thez match from the 50s.
Whoa.
Yeah. And one of the match was the last Battle of Atlanta, which was a match that was considered lost. People have been wanting to find it for, since it aired in the 80s, and nobody could ever find a tape.
Well, I read that the only, there was a rumor that it was one guy that had a copy on an old VHS of this match, and the match, if you haven't seen it, Dally, it's kind of like Shawn Michaels calls it the precursor to the Hell in a Cell. Like, it's a cage with a top on it and stuff, right? Yeah. and it's it's a pretty big rarity. Probably the biggest for a long time.
Yeah, and it's got stuff that was just like not really filmed for television. Muhammad Ali's in there for doing his thing with Vince McMahon interviewing him.
Mm-hmm.
And because it was like a precursor to his big fight with Inoki. And it had it had like a Samoa Joe versus William Regal match from
Wow.
Like
that's from
Samoa Joe looks like he's fresh out of high school, like a Hawaiian shirt, wrestling in a Hawaiian shirt. And the quality of it, you'd think something from, I forget what year that was. It was 2000 something.
It was like early 2000s, yeah.
But it's like it was just awful quality.
It's like recorded on a flip phone.
Yeah. But it's just it's those little things that really give sort of a nice. That particular collection gives a nice history of wrestling because it covers all the decades, like 70s, 50s, 70s, 80s, 90s to modern. Like the last match was Seth Rollins versus Cassius Ohno, and like
in FCW. I mean, they had that tape library. I'm sure they have the FCW stuff. I mean,
there's going to be a lot more of that stuff popping up. Like,
oh yeah.
Because you find they like to shove that stuff onto like the wrestler specific Blu-rays that they put out or DVDs. Like this is their first match back in the territory against whoever. So.
Yeah, I appreciate the collections and that. Like they have the curated selections. Part of me kind of wants to have the entire the entire run of Smoky Mountain Wrestling. It would be nice to have. They've got a few selected things up there because they have the entire catalog.
Yeah, because like it seems like the Smoky Mountain stuff is really focusing on like Chris Jericho that they have.
Right.
Yeah, it's like, but they have like all of it. Like it's just a matter of,
or as much as they could possibly have. Yeah, it's an interesting trivia, Dally, that. WWE, they go around, like they have people who go looking for this lost footage.
Really?
Oh yeah, and people and memorabilia and they have the warehouse where they have all this stuff from old memorabilia and old props and sets and stuff. And there's that, and then then the tape library is just immense where they're trying to find.
What kind of great job would that be to just sort of parse through all of this stuff to see exactly what you have? Like just
God, that'd be so much fun. That'd be one heck of a gig, but
because they have all of this stuff that they film with never any intention to ever air it. Like they just film it. Like a couple of years ago, they put out a collection on video of stuff that was taped but never aired, and it was the stuff that they did after the dark match stuff. So things that happened after Monday Night Raw's cameras turned off.
Sure.
So stuff that was never supposed to air, but they filmed it, so there's a lot of
it's weird, there. Yeah.
There's a lot of weird stuff out there that you never saw and will never see again. But somebody's watching all of it right now. Like,
somebody's locked in a closet.
Like every house show, where there's a guy with a camera. That's on a digital copy somewhere that someone can just grab and put it up. Yeah, the network.
There's got to be just thousands of these things.
Yeah.
Well, the warehouse, like they have a Twitter feed for the warehouse, and like they post some cool pictures from stuff. Like this is the Clash of the Champions banner from 1984, and it's like okay.
Oh yeah, it's all and it's all feds. It's not just their own. I mean, they're picking up stuff like. They could really have their own like Hard Rock Cafe with wrestling memorabilia in every restaurant.
There's been talk for so long about a physical Hall of Fame and you
a
just
museum.
know at that point that.
Well, what's kind of what's really interesting is that there's so much history and there's always been nostalgia for wrestling, but you couldn't get to it, right? Because there was no way to share it with people. Network TV, cable TV, nobody was going to showcase old matches, right? You were basically what's the latest WWF at the time, WCW, and that even went in through the late 90s, early 2000s. You really could do it even online. prior to YouTube, there was nothing. And even with the beginnings of YouTube, you couldn't really get a lot on there.
There are weird, obscure things that will
Yeah.
like pop into your brain from time to time, and it's like, I remember this guy wrestling, and
Yep.
it's like, good luck finding anything about
Right.
that. But
But
now,
the nice thing is that over the last couple of years, the WWE has taken it upon themselves to, like you mentioned, just actually go and look for this stuff and start playing. And now they can share it, which is really cool. Because now that nostalgia, people, like I said, people had that nostalgia. They can experience, they can live on it right now, and it's kind of like what happens with baseball, right? People want to see baseball stats. So they'll talk about old games, they'll talk about Babe Ruth, they'll watch videos, and they'll show those clips online. They'll show the famous 4 home run days. And I think we're finally at that point right now with wrestling where you can do that. Now that with thanks to technology, you couldn't do it before.
because they were starting to do pretty good, because they were like, after they got bought up WCW, and doubled their video library instantly. That's when they started realizing, like, we have a lot of footage.
They started putting out those DVDs and the VHS.
DVDs, like, here's a DVD chronicling Ric Flair's career, and eventually you're like, well, how deep can this rabbit hole go? Because I would love to have you have the WrestleMania collection, maybe put out a Starrcade collection. Or now we don't have to worry about that because it's just all right there.
It's all right there. Exactly.
Instantly.
Very cool. So on to modern times, and we can kind of end the podcast after this. But any big news over the last week and a half in WWE or any other wrestling that has popped up? I know there was we had the vacated title. Was it 2 weeks ago or last week? 2 weeks ago, right?
Last week is when
last week.
They had the match for the titles.
Yes, that's right. Last week was a match. Yeah.
Yeah, 2 Mondays ago. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kevin Owens winning the title. I mean, that's in the last couple of weeks of regular TV wrestling. That's probably the only huge story out of the whole. That's huge. I mean, it's nice when you can get something like that out of a really crappy situation.
Yeah. They manage to do that sometimes. They pull a rabbit out of the hat, and they had the big Triple H return and handed the belt to Owens, but that him coming back, it sparks off. It continues the feud with Reigns. It sparks beef with Seth, because Seth didn't he was out for so long and lost the championship and all that kind of great stuff, and giving it to Owens, like, it's just a completely fresh matchup every week with somebody, or every month with Owens as well, and guys.
And the Kevin Owens relationship makes sense if you're a person that's deep into the wrestling thing.
Yep.
If you're a casual wrestling fan, it makes sense because Kevin Owens is exactly the kind of
slime ball
Triple H would like to have in his corner. If you're deep in the wrestling, you know that Kevin Owens is a Triple H guy. Triple H loves that guy.
He does.
So, it works for both sides of the fence on this thing. So it's a really
it's
really smart booking on this one.
It's one of those. It's one of those amazing things where, how smartly they can book when they're in a corner.
Yeah.
When like in the era of the Monday Night Wars and stuff. I mean, they had like their hits and their misses, but when things got really hot and really big and really cool was when they were in a corner against WCW and they were losing ratings wars and all that kind of fun stuff. But when things are easy, they do get a little complacent, and now
when
in that moment,
they start booking things out a month in advance, and it's. I mean, because remember the fans started really turning on the WWE during the whole Daniel Bryan's rise in popularity, because Roman Reigns' rise or Batista's rise to the top in particular that year, like, the fans saw it choreographed from day one. They knew that's what was going to happen, and that's not fun as a wrestling fan.
Right.
You get it as TV. It makes sense. I mean, it's television. I mean.
By the way, one of our viewers right now, Brian Parsons, says at B_Parsons007 says Jim Cornette
Hey,
saved
Brian.
a lot of tapes that were thrown in the garbage. So that's kind of interesting. I remember how integral Cornette was with a lot of that stuff, especially in was it the early '90s that he was, or late '80s, he was really involved in a lot of that stuff. He was the I'm trying to remember what his look was, because he had a pretty interesting. He had that kind of, was it the grease back ponytail look that Cornette had?
No, he had the really loud sports jackets and
That's what it was. Yeah,
the tennis racket and the
the
big
tennis racket. Yes,
the big bus bus windshield eyeglasses, and
Yep.
and he talked and really ran you down talking to you. But
That's
yeah,
right.
I heard him telling the story about the tapes that he got. Like he literally rescued them from the garbage.
Yeah.
And
Did he really? So
yeah, like they were just, the studio was getting rid of all the old junk, and here it was on the curb, and he actually rescued it. But he was explaining that a lot of like what happened with the BBC, the shows were taped onto tape, but then they were reusing the tapes, so they would record over old shows.
That's why you lost like Doctor Who and all kinds of stuff, right?
That's pretty much what they assumed happened to that last Battle of Atlanta tape. That Ole Anderson taped it over with another wrestling match.
Oh my lord! That's like the kind of stuff that I would do when I was. My brother and I, of course, my dad would record us on vacation at like Marineland or SeaWorld or Kings, wherever we went in the Midwest. Any of those crazy places.
Pull out a tape of family memories and all.
Family memories, and you got episodes of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles taped over it, which has happened, unfortunately. So I can see that happening. I can empathize, maybe even sympathize with losing stuff that way. But yeah, it's interesting how all this stuff is coming back. Remember
in what was it? It was mid-90s when Cornette was trying to do an NWA faction in WWF.
Yeah.
That was one of their first sort of like, hey, remember these guys things, but it was the WWF in the mid-90s, and it was not quite the Attitude Era, so it was just...
Yeah, he brought in the Gigolo Jimmy Del Rey and... what's his name? The Heavenly Bodies. He brought the Heavenly Bodies in.
The Heavenly Bodies.
And they made Bob Holly try to make him a new Midnight Express and these kinds of things.
With Al Snow as
oh yeah, and Jeff Jarrett was there. It just didn't. It was too behind the times.
Yeah.
He's been involved in so many wrestling, so many tag teams and like, was it Midnight Express? I think I remember him. I remember him probably Midnight Express more than anything else.
Oh yeah, he was a big Midnight Express guy. Yeah. I mean, he co-managed Yokozuna at the time.
That's right. Yeah, he did. Yeah.
Okay. And then Vader after that. Like, I mean, he had a pretty good WWE run as the manager. But his stuff in WCW and NWA is real meaty stuff.
Yep. Very cool. Very cool. Well, gentlemen, it has been a fun, I think, like 45-minute or so podcast, surprisingly, that we've chatted about.
Our short podcast.
Let's do a short podcast in like an hour and a half later, which is how these always end up going, isn't it? But it's been a lot of fun talking to you guys, and I like the direction that we're going to take for the for naming of the podcast, maybe coming up with a different name for each episode. It could be a lot of fun. Thank you to all the listeners, all the readers, or all the video watchers, however you want to, all the people that absorb this content and send us messages, even live during our podcast here. Very much appreciated. As we're trying to get this show up off the ground, it's getting some great feedback, and we want to thank you guys for that. You can find us at SideQuesting.com. We're going to have a feed up. Now, I think I've settled on a feed, of at least setting it up, so expect that in the next couple of days here. I'll have all the old episodes up as well. And yeah, you can find us individually for right now. You can find me at Dolly Domofsky on Twitter. John,
I'm at John Kehoe, JONKEHOE on Twitter. I will tweet at you about wrestling whenever you want.
Excellent. There you go. There you go. And he will. Trust me. I was following basically your live blog about some of the matches the other day. So that was fun.
Yeah, pretty much every Monday, if you go on Twitter, you'll see it.
One of you two guys. Yeah. It's great.
Content.
JJ, where can they find you?
It's at the double J, the _ double _ J, just the letter J.
Perfect. Thank you, everybody. We will see you guys in the next episode of the SideQuest Wrestling Podcast.
Untitled SideQuest
Wrestling Podcast, with the weekly title. Thank you for listening and watching this week's Intercontinental Podcasters.
It's not fake. It's a wrestling podcast.
It's not fake. It's a wrestling podcast.
Cheers.
Cheers, everybody.
See ya.